July 1995, New Delhi, India. Before midnight, police constable Abdur Nazir Kunju is on his routine patrol near Ashok Yatri Niwas on Mandir Marg. He's not chasing anyone. No call has come in. He's just walking. Then he sees it. Black, oily smoke climbing into the sky. A fire so violent, roaring 35 feet high, licking the night sky almost, as if it's furious at something. Now for some context, July in New Delhi is the month of rains, not of flames. There really is no reason for flames so high to be covering the sky. The restaurant is closed. No customers either. No staff. And yet, the tandoor is lit, Kunju mutters under his breath. यहाँ तो अभी कोई customer भी नहीं है. So why is the fire burning? Translated to, there are no customers here. Then why is the tandoor still burning? Kunju gets curious. He steps inside the kitchen. The open air kitchen glows orange. He slaps his face. Sweat beads on his forehead. Near the tandoor, the manager, Keshav Kumar, is frantically feeding the fire logs slabs of butter, not ghee, butter. Kunju asks the obvious question, hey, what's cooking? Keshav freezes only for a moment and then opens his mouth. Purane political posters. Old political posters. He stammers. Kunju doesn't believe him because posters don't really smell like that. He steps closer to the fire, pushes past Keshav, peeks into the tandoor. At first his eyes can't make sense of it. Then they adjust. He sees fingers, human fingers, blackened, curled, reaching out from the coals like a final accusation. Kunju stumbles back. This is no poster. This is a body. Keshav doesn't run. Instead, he reaches into his pocket, pulls out a thick bundle of cash, pressed tight, ready. Chodo na sir, panga kyun lena? Let it go, sir. Why take the trouble? Then almost like a warning, aap nahi jante, ye aag kiski hai? You don't know whose fire this is. Now for context, in India, that sentence carries weight, power, protection, and also danger. Later, as the story unravels, we find that Keshav felt highly indebted to his boss, a man who had saved him, paid his bills, protected his entire family. A man you don't say no to, you just agree to whatever he says. But Constable Kunju says no. He radios for backup, and that's when it really happens. From the shadows of the parking lot, almost seemingly from nowhere, a white Maruti, engine running, lights off, screeches near Kunju. Tires spin, and then the car vanishes into darkness. Who was inside? And more importantly, who was burning in the oven? By morning, the answer emerges. The body belongs to a woman, and her name is Naina Sahni. To understand how a woman's body ends up in the tandoor, an Indian oven, you need to start by understanding who she was before she became this piece of evidence, before she was a body burning inside the tandoor. Welcome to Welted Marigold. I'm your storyteller Ambica. Tonight we dive into the murder of Naina Sahni, a bone-chilling case that changed the way that tandoors were seen forever in India.
कहानी है दिल्ली के उस खलनायक की जिसने अपनी पत्नी की हत्या के बाद उसे जलते हुए तंदूर में झोंक दिया।
Naina Sahni was born in 1966 in New Delhi, India, into a respectable Sikh middle-class family. Her father, Harbhajan Singh Sahni, was a retired bank official, disciplined and a believer in education, especially for his daughters. Her mother, Jaswant Kaur, formed the quiet backbone of their household. Naina was cherished, encouraged to always go after her dreams. From a young age, she stood out. At Lady Irwin School, one of the most prestigious schools of New Delhi, the teachers remembered her for her confidence, how she spoke out without hesitation, held her own, how she carried herself in a manner as if she already knew the world for her was much bigger than the room she was in. She wasn't just interested in blending in, she wanted to stand out, and stand out she did. At Delhi University, she found her true voice when she joined student politics. She was charismatic, articulate, and really fearless. Naina, no surprise, rose quickly. She became the General Secretary of the Delhi Youth Congress, the girls' wing. But politics was not something that really was her dream. Her dream was something that was in the sky. In an era where very few Indian women ever imagined the cockpit, Naina did more than just imagine. She worked for it. She studied. She trained. Pushed through a system not built for women like her. By the early 1990s, she was a licensed pilot flying Continental Airlines. So in 1995, Naina was a representation of New India, Naya Bharat. She was ambitious, independent. She didn't need anyone to really survive. She could do it herself. That is why what happened next was very surprising and shocked everyone. Naina met Sushil Sharma through her political work at the Gold Market office. At first glance, you would think it all looked so perfect, a perfect match. Sushil Sharma was the president of the Delhi Youth Congress, powerful, rising, untouchable. Together, he and Naina seemed like they were an unstoppable couple, a power couple. But power doesn't always pair well with love. Sometimes it pairs with control. Sushil Sharma was born in 1958 in New Delhi. No famous surname, no inherited influence. What he had was instinct. At Satyavati College, he learned the language of muscle politics, how fear moves faster than ideology, how money buys silence, and how loyalty can be manufactured. By the early 1990s, Sushil wasn't just climbing, he had already arrived. A government-allotted bungalow in New Delhi, a fleet of cars, access to Delhi's Lutyens elite. People didn't argue with him. They adjusted their ways. Around 1993, Naina and Sushil reportedly married, but in a secret ceremony. Not public, not official. Sushil wanted to remain an eligible bachelor, at least to the outside world. To the outside world, it must have all seemed so romantic. But inside, Naina lived a very different kind of reality. Inside flat number 8x2 Mandir Marg, Naina felt like a prisoner. Doors weren't just locked, they were monitored. Sushil recorded nearly everything, from her phone calls to her conversations to even her silences. He always needed to know who she was speaking to, what she was speaking about, how long she was speaking to that person. It all felt like she was in a sundar pinjra, a beautiful cage. And then there was one name that particularly troubled and triggered Sushil, and that name was Matbul Karim. Matbul Karim was Naina's former classmate, her political colleague, friend. On July 2nd, 1995, Naina was sitting in her house and she was thinking about Australia and her plans to move to Australia when she called Matbul to inquire about her visa. Naina planned to move to Australia to move away from her controlling husband. It's at that instant that her husband Sushil entered the house. Naina immediately hung up. But Sushil didn't ask questions. He entered, picked up the phone and pressed redial. At the other end, Matbul answered the call. Sushil hung up. He didn't argue with Naina. He said nothing. He didn't scream. He didn't yell. He didn't shout at her. He walked towards his drawers, and from there he picked up his .32 bore Arminus revolver. He inspected it and then turned towards Naina. 3 shots. One hit the wall, one struck her neck, one entered her head. She collapsed instantly onto the living room rug. Now most people would panic. They would perhaps scream out for help. But Sushil did none of that. Instead, he just looked at Naina's body, stood there waiting, and then he calmly went and wrapped her body in the same rug that she had bled on. Then he carried that rug along with her body to his car and drove away in the Delhi night. At first he thought about the Yamuna River. He thought of throwing her body into the Yamuna River and nobody would find it. But there were a lot of risks associated with this, because the Yamuna River across the ITO bridge was very close to the police station. There were a lot of people there, and this meant a very high risk of him being caught. He then thought about burying her into the ground, but this also meant digging too deep. But then something clicked. And then he thought of the Bagiya Restaurant. Now, Bagiya Restaurant was the restaurant that he knew and also had the control of. At first, it felt like such a brilliant plan because in the Bagiya restaurant, he could throw her body into flames of the tandoors and her body would be diminished to ashes. Nobody would ever be able to know where she vanished. But that night, science and fire were not his friends. And so Sushil drove with the body all the way to the Bagiya restaurant. Now at Bagiya restaurant, Sushil was almost like a king. Nobody could ever ask him anything. Nobody could question him. Whatever he said had to be done. So there he was with Naina's body, trying to push it through the tandoor and burn all the evidence. But here's a scientific detail that Sushil missed. An incinerator and a tandoor are not quite the same. An incinerator is supposed to burn the body to ashes. On the contrary, a tandoor, which burns at 480 degrees Celsius, is not supposed to burn the bones to ashes. A tandoor is designed to cook bread and meat, not destroy a body. So when Sushil ordered Naina's body to be put inside the tandoor, the fire created a smolder effect. The restaurant staff fed the flames with logs and cardboard and eventually forced large slabs of Amul butter because the ghee had apparently run out. Here's the thing, butter burns, but it also melts. When human fat melts under high heat in a moist environment, it undergoes saponification. Fat turns to wax. Wax forms a protective layer, a thermal insulator. The fire meant to erase Naina Sahni, instead preserved her bones, her marrow, and her truth.